Welcome to this lecture on military, monarchy in brackets, and security in Thailand. By way of introduction, my name is Tyrell Habercorn. I'm a fellow in the Department of Political and Social Change. My work is primarily about histories of state violence and human rights in Southeast Asia, primarily Thailand, but I also try to think about the region as a whole. And I look at history in Thailand over the last 80 years. I want to start by noting that the reason why the word monarchy is in brackets is largely what's at the heart of today's lecture, which is that the monarchy has been an ever-present presence of Thai politics, certainly over the last 80 years, but really over the last 800 years. But it's an uneasy presence, and we'll talk today about why that's the case and what that means in both a macro political sense as well as in people's individual lives. In this short lecture, I will talk about 5 different things. So first, I will begin by talking about the 1932 revolution, which was the change from absolute to constitutional monarchy, the possibility of the rule of law, and the entrance of the military into politics in Thailand. Then second, I'll talk about Field Marshal Surit Thanarat and the rebirth of the monarchy in the Cold War. Third, I'll talk about anti-communist counterinsurgency, the 6 October 1976 massacre, and the growth of the para-monarchy. Fourth, I'll talk about the 19 September 2006 coup, prosecution for the crime of lèse-majesté, and the resurgence surveillance state. And then fifth, I'll talk about the 22 May 2014 coup and the crackdown on dissident thinking in the most recent months. There are 4 key questions that will recur throughout my discussion today, and these are as follows. First, is the Thai monarchy a security entity in Thailand? 2, what are the ways in which the monarchy functions differently from other state agencies? 3, how does the monarchy work together with the army and other agencies? And 4, given the constrictions of speech about the monarchy, what are the implications for the possibility of both accessing justice and consolidating democracy for all citizens in Thailand? What I will argue in this lecture is that over the last 80 years, since 24 June 1932, which was the moment at which the People's Party fomented the transformation from absolute to constitutional monarchy, rather than being displaced from politics, the monarchy has found a new, increasingly powerful position. Perhaps of greatest concern, there has been the slow and steady growth of what I will call the para-monarchy, by which I mean citizens and others outside the institution of the monarchy, outside the palace, who take up para-state tactics against other citizens in the defense of the monarchy. So to begin with, Number 1, the 1932 revolution, the possibility of the rule of law, and the entrance of the military into politics. In February 1927, a group of 7 Siamese students met in Paris. They were all studying in Europe at the time and began to make a plan to transform the absolute to a constitutional monarchy, which they saw as a cure to the ills faced by the country, including massive inequality. They called the group the People's Party, or in Thai, the Kanat Rasadon, and chose Priti Panomyong, an eloquent law student, as their leaders. When they returned to the country over the next few years, they made alliances with many others, including many in the military, who called themselves the promoters, and in total, the group included 49 military officers and 65 civilians. At the time, King Pachadipok, or Rama VII, who was the 7th king of the Chakri dynasty, was on the throne. There had been a prophecy made that the Chakri dynasty would last for 150 years. This was due to be up on the 6th of April, 1932. Nothing happened on the 6th of April, but 2.5 months later, while the king was vacationing at the seaside, approximately 100 mid-level officers launched a coup d'etat in Bangkok. In the name of the People's Party, the king was called on to agree to submit to a constitution. The king's reply was telling. He wrote, quote, "I have received the letter in which you invite me to return to Bangkok as a constitutional monarch. For the sake of peace and in order to save useless bloodshed, to avoid confusion and loss to the country, and more because I had already considered making this change myself, I am willing to cooperate in the establishment of a constitution under which I am willing to serve." What exactly happened after this? Well, one key can be seen in Breedy's explanation of events. Reflecting on his participation in the People's Party, he explained that lacking a word for revolution in Thai, group members, quote, "use the ordinary words, change the system of government in which the king is above the law to the system of government in which the king is under the law," unquote. Although the transformation of absolute to constitutional monarchy is discussed and written about as a revolution by some, many others, including scholars and early Thai communists and radicals, have instead seen it as a coup d'etat that left the elite secure in their positions and strengthened the military, doing nothing to change the lives of ordinary people. Gasian Tetapura, a noted Thai political scientist, commented that the Siamese communists, who were fighting for a different sort of revolution at the time, quote, regarded the People's Party as self-styled, that is, fake people and revolutionaries, actually representing the bourgeoisie in alliance with some military leaders and disgruntled bureaucrats, who took power out of self-interest and conflict with the royalty, rather than for the poor people, who gained little benefit and no power from the whole revolutionary charade. The new regime was essentially a dictatorship that still served the interests of the monarchy, the rich, and the foreign imperialists as before, but which simply replaced one oppressor with many, unquote. But the 24th of June 1932, whether you call it a coup d'etat or a revolution, or Preedy's phrase of the transformation of a system in which the king is above the law to one in which the king is under the law, inaugurated a new and heady time in Thailand. The civil service changed dramatically, the military became ascendant, exciting economic thinking and plans emerged. Much seemed possible, and indeed was possible. This first coup also inaugurated many additional coups. In the years since 1932, there have been 12 successful coups, 7 failed coup attempts, 27 prime ministers, and 18 constitutions in Thailand. In terms of the royal family, Bajadipok abdicated in 1935. Rama VIII, or Ananda, had returned to Bangkok and was crowned king, but he was unexpectedly killed in 1946. The throne was vacant until 1950, when the current king, Bhumibol, ascended. He remained largely powerless until the ascendance of Field Marshal Surit Thanarat late in the 1950s. I'll talk about Surit shortly. But for now, I want to signal the first moment of the actions of the paramonarchy. As Duncan McCargo argues, the monarchy is at the center of a network. McCargo's primary point is that the monarchy has been forged by the king and his supporters as a parapolitical entity. In other words, as an entity whose power extends quite far beyond its stated goals. In addition, I would note that, particularly in the ways in which the monarchy has operated since the 1970s, the monarchy and the network surrounding it is an inherently illiberal form of government supported by many unsavory actors. What I would like to suggest takes the idea of the monarchy at the center of a parapolitical network to a slightly different level. I'm suggesting that the members of that network, as well as citizens who feel close to that network, operate as what could be called a para-monarchy. The first instance of this dates from shortly after 1932 and King Pajaritpok's attempt to create a network of secret underground actors to undermine the transition from absolute to constitutional monarchy, whose plans were to assassinate the members of the People's Party, in other words, the legitimate leaders of the state. The king himself escaped getting into trouble, but all of the officers involved in the plans went to jail, where they continued to plot. Their desires, like many of those involved in the network monarchy and the paramonarchy today, is what Paolo Virno, an Italian political theorist, identifies as counter-revolution, a set of processes that, quote, actively makes its own new order, forging new mentalities, cultural habits, tastes, and customs. In short, a new common sense. It goes to the root of things and works methodically, unquote.